Hey guys, Tyler here with Samson Pro, and today we're going to be talking about zeroing your rifle with a set of Samson manual flip sights. This is going to be a two-part video, so we're going to film the first half on the range. We're going to talk about the procedure that we go through to zero a rifle and give you guys some tips. But then when we go inside, we're going to get a whiteboard out and we're going to discuss some of the finer points of how you acquire a sight picture and the different methods that some people use in terms of their front sight post holdover to make sure you're getting a consistent shot grouping every time. We're just going to be shooting a simple target today to zero with. This is just a 7-inch circle with a 1-inch black dot in the center of it. And the procedure we're going to be shooting is 3-shot groups today. Andrew's fairly familiar with the platform. If you guys are confirming a zero or you're pretty comfortable with your skill level, then a 3-shot group is fine as long as you're keeping it tight. If not, then we'd recommend you guys doing like a 5-shot group just to make sure that when you reference the target and go down range to take a look, that that group stays small and tight, and that we're making sure that the adjustments we're making are in the gun and not with the shooter. Okay guys, so we're going to be shooting a mutt gun that Andrew and I built up. Just so you know, it's a 14.5-inch barrel. It does have a comp brake on there, and like we said earlier, we got a set of Samson manual flip sights. Elevation adjustments in the front with an HK style halo. We'll talk about the difference between that and A2 when we get inside. And our manual flip rear, where we're going to make our windage adjustments. We chose today to zero at 25 yards. Don't get caught up in which yardage you guys zero at. We don't want to tell you what yardage to zero at. That's a decision that you guys are going to make. But just to illustrate our point today, we're going to be doing a 25-yard zero, and we're going to be doing it from this barricade here. And if you guys didn't catch the video on barricade shooting, we'll put the link to that in the video here so you guys can catch that as well. All right, guys, we're here on the 25-yard line. We're going to get set up for our first shot string of 3 to see where this rifle's zeroed. These sights are as they come from Samson, so we haven't made any adjustments to them first. You'll notice that your sight radius is really important. I'm running my sight back just a little bit because I got this Inforce light out front on this rifle. If you guys zero your rifle with your sights in a specific spot and then you move them, you obviously need to re-zero it again because your sight radius does have a lot to do with those angles that are at play here as we start to zero the rifle. So Andrew's got this set to the small aperture because that's the aperture we're going to use to zero this at 25 yards. And for these distances, that's what you should be using to zero the rifle. He's going to go ahead and throw some Grace Ammo 55 grain full metal jacket in the gun. And we're going to put 3 rounds on the top target and see where we're at. Okay guys. So we're here at the first target we shot at, 25-yard zero. This is Andrew, 3-round group from 25 yards. Now you can see he's got a pretty tight group here. This one's sent a little bit low, but he put 2 right on top of each other. So we're going to say that our group is centered right there where those 2 holes got punched in the paper. The way we're going to break this down is understanding what adjustments we would make at 100 yards, because that's how our sights are set up. So the front sight post, for every click that you make with the front sight post at 100 yards is about 1.5 inches. With the windage adjustment in the rear, at 100 yards, you're just over a 1/2 inch, okay? So if we were at 100 yards, we would need to come up 1, 2, 3 inches. This target's broken down into 1 by 1 inch squares, makes it easy for us. 1, 2, 3. So that would be 2 clicks at 100 yards. We're at 25. It's really easy, we just multiply that by 4. So if our elevation needs to come up 2 clicks at 100, it means it needs to come up 8 clicks at 25 in order for us to get back where we need to be. Windage, we're about 1, 2, and a little extra, maybe let's call it 2.5, to the right of where we want to be. With a 1/2 inch adjustment at 100 yards, that would be 5 clicks. We need to come left on our windage adjustment. So at 25, we're going to come left 20 clicks, and we're going to come up 1, 2, 8. Up 8, left 20. We're going to shoot a 3-shot string again and see where we're at. Alright guys, so we're getting set up to make those adjustments we talked about downrange. Now when we do this on the front sight post, we know that we need to come bring the point of impact up 8 clicks, which really means we're going to run the front sight post down, and here's why. If this finger is the rear sight and this finger is the front sight, if we want the point of impact to come up, we need to drop the front sight post down. That means in order to bring them back into alignment, the barrel comes up. So Andrew's going to take his front sight post, the Samson front sight tool, and he's going to go clockwise, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. He's going to go clockwise 8 clicks, and that should get us back where we need to be elevation-wise. Okay, so now we're going to make our windage adjustments. Remember, we needed to come left 20 clicks. And on our rear sight, you can see it's got an R with an arrow going clockwise, meaning if you turn it clockwise, you're moving point of impact right. If you go counterclockwise, you're moving point of impact left. So Andrew's gonna come left 20 clicks, and then we're gonna reshoot the string.
Going hot.
Okay guys, this is after the second shot string. We're down here at the 25-yard target. You can see that this group is much closer, but we still need to fine-tune our adjustments a little bit, so let's break it down. We are about a ½ inch left. The center of this 3-shot group is about a ½ inch left to where we need to be. So if we needed to move right a ½ inch at 100, that's 1 click. We're at 25, so we're going to go right 4 clicks. That's going to bring us a ½ inch right at 25. We need to come up about another inch to be centered. Now our adjustment is 1.5 inches at 100 yards. At 25 yards, we multiply that by 4, that's 4 clicks. But because we really only need to go 1 inch, not 1.5 inches, we're going to try 3 clicks of elevation adjustment, and we're going to try the 4 clicks of windage adjustment and see where that gets us. Alright guys, back down here, this is the 3rd shot string. After Andrew made those final adjustments, you can see that we're right where we need to be now. At 25 yards, all we did was multiply those 100-yard adjustments by 4. It took us 3 shot strings, and we got right where we needed to be. That's just over a ½ inch group. We know that those adjustments we made are good, and that Andrew's holding a nice tight group with the rifle. So we're going to call it 0 to 25 yards, and now we're going to head inside and talk a little bit about sight picture. Okay guys, so we're back inside after shooting that 25-yard 0 with the rifle out of the range. And the second part of this video is talking about sight picture. And the reason that this needs its own segment is because this is often the most confused portion of zeroing a rifle. Everybody understands the X's and O's of adjusting the sight post and doing the windage. But what everybody does a little bit differently is how they develop a sight picture. And this is really critical, especially when you consider that there are different types of front sight halos. A2 and HK, primarily when we're talking about the AR-15 platform. So what I want to talk about is the differences in how we develop a sight picture with HK and A2 and how that works, because we get a lot of phone calls, people calling in and saying they're having difficulty adjusting their rifle, and we go through the procedure with them and they understand how to do it. But what we can't know and what we can't see without being right there next to you guys is how are you developing a sight picture, and without drawing it out for somebody it's very difficult. So when we think about sight picture, everybody thinks about it pretty much the same way. In your mind, you imagine a rear peep sight, a front sight post, and a target that are all perfectly in alignment, like they're all in a tunnel, concentric rings working themselves down to the target. In reality, that's not actually how we develop a sight picture. This is what we think a sight picture looks like, or we think a lot of people think a sight picture looks like when we talk to them on the phone. The outer circle represents the rear aperture on the rifle. The inner circle here that has a break in it represents an HK front sight halo, and then obviously the black line is the sight post. What I've done is I've put a red X that marks the center of the rear aperture window, the rear circular aperture. Now, in reality, we know that the front sight post is not going to have a perfect relationship with the front sight halo in terms of its depth towards, in reference to the center of the front sight halo. So we have to make a choice as a shooter how we're going to develop a sight picture. And here's option number 1. And this is, when we talk to people on the phone, we ask people in this way as a slang term, are you a line up the circles guy, or are you a make sure the front sight post is in the center of the circle guy? And this is what we mean. If you are a line up the circles guy, which I am, and I think that's the easiest way to develop a sight picture with an HK front sight, because it's natural for your brain to align those two circles, you need to understand that your front sight post could end up anywhere inside this front sight halo, because we know that we need to make adjustments for point of aim, point of impact. So if you have to raise your point of impact and you need to adjust your front sight post all the way down, your front sight post is no longer in the center of your sight picture, but your front sight halo is aligned perfectly with your rear sight aperture. So what that means is there's a discrepancy between the center of our viewing window and where the front sight post is. Likewise, if we had to lower the point of impact by raising the front sight post, this is a dramatic example obviously, but our front sight post might be wound counterclockwise all the way up so that it's now above the center of the front sight halo. The reason that this is important is because now we need to show how we reference a target off of this. If we run this front sight post all the way down, and I put this red X back in the center of the front sight halo, okay? If I'm shooting at what we were just shooting, like a 7-inch circle at 25 yards, it's now going to look something like this. Now our target is not in the center of our sight picture either. Our target has to be referenced off of the front sight post because clearly that's where we're making the adjustment for the bullet to go. So now let's talk about the next option. The next option is we can be a put the front sight post in the center of my sight picture guy. And if that's who you are, then the thing you need to realize, in this example I've shown you the front sight post run all the way down. This is the same thing, front sight post run all the way down. I've left the X at the center of the rear aperture. But now in this example, you see that I have to shift the front sight halo up and out of my field of view from the rear aperture in order to put the front sight post in the center of the picture. Now here's the catch. It doesn't matter which one of these you do, okay? As long as you don't change back and forth between the two while you're shooting. What I mean by that is, if you're a line up the circles guy and you start shooting at a target, and you need to adjust your point of impact up so you run your front sight post down, but then you move that front sight post back to the center of your picture, over here, you just changed your sight picture and you made an adjustment. So now we don't know what that adjustment's going to do to the rifle. All right, so you need to decide which one's right for you, but those are how those two different sight pictures are developed with an HK style front sight halo. Now let's talk about an A2 front sight, let's talk about an A2 front sight halo, where we have this forked front sight, right, that everybody's familiar with. Again, when we think about it in our minds, this is what we think we're seeing. We think we see a rear aperture perfectly lined up with the ends of the prongs on the front sight halo and a sight post that is going to be perfectly in the center of our rear sight aperture right over the target. In reality, that doesn't happen. If you talk to some long-range precision shooters that shoot nothing but iron sights, okay, they might, this is the sibling example to the top one with the HK, they might be a line up the prongs guy. And if you're doing that, they use some kind of a visual reference. They'll cut the circle in half with the ends of the prongs on the front sight halo, and wherever their front sight post lands is wherever their front sight post lands. And then they need to index that target off the front sight post, even if it isn't in the center of their viewing window. This is how an A2 front sight halo is more traditionally used. We put the front sight post in the center of our sight picture. And this fork design kind of lends itself, it kind of gets lost in the corners of our viewing window. So it's not a big deal if there isn't a solid reference point off the circle because it's a circle. You know, we don't know whether the forks get lost up here or whether they get lost halfway or whether they get lost underneath. It doesn't matter. We put the front sight post in the center of the sight picture and we break the shot off. Now again, you can do either one with an A2. But what's interesting between these two different styles of developing a sight picture is most people, when they're shooting an A2 front sight halo, and most marksmanship programs are designed to tell shooters, put the front sight post in the center of the sight picture. The reason that creates confusion is now when somebody starts shooting an HK front sight halo, their brain wants to naturally line up these circles, and now they're at conflict between putting the front sight post in the center or lining up the circles. So I hope this illustration kind of gets the point across to you guys about you need to make a decision about what front sight post you want to use. Samson offers both, HK or A2. It doesn't matter which one you use, but the most important thing is that you're developing the same sight picture every time, so that when we make an adjustment to the rifle, we know that that adjustment is in point of impact and not just the way we're perceiving the sight picture. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I know that was a lot of information in a short period of time. We're going to do some more videos on this. We're going to talk about some trajectory and some different zeros. We mentioned, you know, it's up to you guys what range you pick, but we're going to talk some more in depth about that in the future. Don't forget Samson Sights, both the HK and the A2 front sight halos, available in a bunch of format, fixed and folding, available at samson-mfg.com, as well as our new website, if you haven't checked it out yet, samson-mfgpro.com. As always, thank you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And oh yeah, if you love ATR, flex your second. All right, guys, like we said, we don't tell you what yardage to zero at. That's a decision you got to make. You shoot whatever you're comfortable with. You shoot whatever yardage you guys think that you can shoot successfully. So we set Andrew up with a situation that we think he can shoot successfully, and we're going to see him put some rounds down range in this first shot string.
Going hot! Clear!
So you guys can see from that group there, not only was he holding the rifle nice, tight, and steady, but he didn't even have to make any adjustments. These sights are just spot on as they come from us on your rifle.